I'm really excited because my guest today is the first hospitality business owner that we've had on the show. His name is Jesse Gollan. And man, has Jesse done it all and seen it all? Probably not, but he's pretty close. Jesse owns and runs Get Naked Espresso Bar, among many other hospitality businesses. He has been there, done that, and is continuing to strive for hospitality excellence. This episode is jam-packed full of little nuggets of wisdom that are applicable across all businesses. We talk about his philosophy in running a hospitality business, what you are actually providing and the value exchange there, as well as team management, some really golden content about how to set your team up to carry the culture that you want forward, and how to help them do that. So let's get into it. Jesse Gollan, the one and only, thank you for coming into the studio with me.
Thank you, Caleb. Maxwell, the one and only. Thank you for coming in to talk to me.
That's a power move.
Let me adjust my chair.
So I'm so excited to be speaking with you. It was 2 episodes ago, I think, that me and Pete Andrew called you out, and here you are. It's like speak of Jesse and he will appear. You're wearing the merch today, which is very, very appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
We're speaking about Get Naked Espresso is probably the one brand and business you've had for the longest time, but you've got a whole heap of fingers in multiple pies, right? So we'll be speaking about your business journey and lessons learned and mistakes made and fun had, right?
For sure.
But why don't you start us off by painting the picture of what businesses you're currently running and where they are and what they do.
Easy. So we have Get Naked Espresso Bar that started in 2013, so coming up 11 years ago now. And during its journey, we've operated like 6 locations at one point, and we've grown and tried a few different things, and we've made so many friends, and we've had awesome staff, and many of which have stayed with us for most of that journey as well, which is crazy. But 3 years ago now, we took on X-Line Tamer and turned that into our own brand of nude food breakfast bar.
Yes.
And that's been a crazy and really, really exciting journey for us to take everything that we'd learned and all the values that we had in the coffee shop, but to be able to blow that up into a massive operation with 15 to 20 staff and just flat out huge venue. It was terrifying. We initially said, no way, we're not doing that.
But you ended up doing it anyway.
But it just ate away. My wife Haley and we were just like, hang on, I think maybe we should just take this terrifying step because we're ready. Yes. We're grown-ups.
Yeah, yes.
Let's do it.
Dude, I love that. Fun fact, Get Naked Espresso was the first ever client of Hebron Films.
Yeah. How good's that?
Yeah, so good.
I love that they're still floating around the internet.
Are they?
Yeah.
That's great.
It's a great little profile of how we were thinking back then, what we were doing.
Yeah.
How we sounded, what we looked like. It was
what the shop looked like.
What the shop looked like, what we were thinking, what our plans were.
Wow.
And it was so fun to be able to do that with you and Levi back then with Hebron.
Yeah.
And that was like crucial for me as well, to be able to have something to springboard off like that and to promote ourselves. And I'd assume and hope that it was also mutually beneficial for you guys, because we generated quite an audience really quickly.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to be able to work in collaboration with a couple of people, like with with Pat and Reese from Nacho Station, and it's just good. We were all kind of like ready. We were all ready to do something, and we're all full of energy and drive.
We were, and thanks to you, Levi and I were full of coffee for quite a long time.
Exactly.
It's the power of contra deals with hospitality businesses.
It was funny.
Massive win-win.
The amount of things that like became of that because we were all just like madly caffeinated.
Oh man, fond memories. We're gonna dig in and around the development journey of Get Naked Espresso Bar and Nude Food, but I've got to ask you right up front the most common question probably that you got when you started, maybe. What is the thing with nakedness and food? Why get naked?
Well, it started off as just being cheeky was secondary, really.
Yeah.
That kind of came as a result of our initial drive to call it Get Naked Espresso Bar. Because when I was working at Tuft Cafe, me and my mate Ryan there, we were playing around with these naked portafilters, the little group handle that goes up in the machine. And I was like, this is cool. And I could see that there were different things that you could get out of that. You couldn't hide anything because the extraction would be wildly catastrophic if it wasn't correct.
Right.
And you couldn't hide it.
Yeah.
And so they already had the nickname of naked portafilters because they didn't have the spout on them. It's just the basket. And then I'm like, this is cool. It kind of works with my philosophy of how to run things. Like, let's be unashamed and like fully on show. And these things are called naked portafilters, and they make naked espressos in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's just call it that. Let's call it the Naked Espresso Bar.
I love that.
And then I went to register it, and it's like, bam, taken.
No way. The Naked Espresso Bar was the original intended name.
Yeah.
And it was taken.
It was taken. There's a lovely little coffee shop that used to be on Little Burke Street in Melbourne. Yeah. And it took me half a second to go, that's okay, because I'll call it, you go and get a naked espresso. So it was more about getting a naked espresso. But it took half a second for people to realize that it was fun to say get naked. And espresso bar is quite lengthy. And so everyone's like, get naked. And it's just like, whatever. I to this day, people say, do I have to be naked? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's Get Naked Espresso. Like, I love just leaving it up to the general public to think that it's cheeky.
That's too good. Well, the cheekiness comes in when you're saying, where are you going to meet someone? And you're going, well, let's get naked.
Exactly. And the fun thing is that whilst it was quite risque back then, it's now become such an institution that no one even thinks twice.
No.
And unless they're new to town.
Yeah. That's right.
Or they don't know about it.
Yeah.
So it just worked out really well. So everything that we do is always just really authentic, and we love sharing all of our tips and secrets and how we get it right, and sharing our passion. And it's just like, here we are. We started off, there was a piece of wood on a couple of milk crates, and we had a cabinet at one stage and just a machine, and that was it. We were just telling everyone what we were doing. And back then, no one had even opened a coffee shop in Bendigo before.
I was going to talk about that, right? Like I would consider you the grandfather of coffee only shops in Bendigo. There wasn't one before.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
there's been plenty around, like obviously, but no one had really ventured out because people thought it was crazy.
Yeah,
everyone's like, how are you going to run a business just making coffee? And it's just like, well, I'm just going to do it really well. And we're going to make lots of them.
Yes.
And a part of that was being young and naive. And I'm glad that I had that degree of stupidity, because I wouldn't have done it otherwise, because the risks were quite present.
And not maybe all of them understood.
Yeah, exactly.
But spot on. I love that.
But we managed to identify those risks, and thankfully we overcame them by by achieving our goal,
Yeah.
essentially.
Which
So,
was your goal being?
to be busy.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah, and initially when we weren't as busy, I was just there every second of every day, and so we weren't hemorrhaging wages or anything like that. It was just I had an offside, or if it was busy, and it was simple.
Yeah,
like we were only 3 foot off the ground, so we didn't have far to fall.
That's so good. I love that analogy.
Yeah,
but you have become quite. Get Naked Espresso has become like quite an institution in Bendigo. I'm gonna go to how it grew over the next few years, and as I was watching you do it, I was like, this guy's like taking over the world one coffee shop at a time. Like there was some mad expansion there, right?
yeah.
It was awesome.
It was erratic.
Was it a wild ride on the inside?
It was false.
False.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I don't know why that's the first word that came to my head, but it was an experiment, and I didn't realize it was an experiment at the time.
Yep. So lay it out what happened for those who don't know this story of how what you started there and how you grew.
Well, we operated for not long, maybe 12 months, and then a lease came up on View Street, and I was really close with the Meadow back then, and they're like, hey, come up here. There's a shop right there. And I'd always said if anything comes up, because we realized that we were doing well there, and I'm like, well, maybe if we go somewhere else that is a little bit further away, then we'll be able to do well there as well.
And we're talking like a little bit further away. We're talking like 300 meters.
It was on the same
meters?
street.
Just the other side of the fountain.
It was the same number. We were 73 Mitchell, and that was 73 View Street. But it had the tourism and the art gallery and a whole lot of different stuff going on up there. And we're like, yeah, hell yeah, why not? Like we were still running off that initial excitement and just like that crazy confidence of like, let's just do it. Why not? And just having so many hours available to just do whatever. It's like I kind of had the mentality that I could do anything as long as I put enough hours into it.
Yeah.
And that went really well. It was good. It was actually super, 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 super quiet for at least 6 months.
Wow. That would have been tough.
It was tough on the staff that I put up there.
Yep.
And that's when I started to realize that you can't clone yourself. So don't think that you can clone your business if you are the one driving it.
Good one.
It takes a lot of time to impart your qualities into your staff. And that doesn't happen overnight just by saying, here's a shop that we've opened, here's our product, I'll teach you how to do it, and here you go. Because people are never going to share 100% of your drive.
Yeah.
You can be lucky enough to find some that get pretty close, but that's going to be rare. So, but
how did you manage that, and what did you change? Because I've experienced that, right? When we first hired our first staff member was Micah Gregory.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Micah, what a legend. But I did not set him up to succeed because I brought him on board and I was like, I just need some help, and I've hired you, so now you help. Go do your thing.
Do it.
Go do.
Yeah, because it seems so natural to you.
Yeah, because like I knew I knew how to do everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I just need you to do this, this, and this. And I was confused for a little while as to why he wasn't just a replica of me. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what you're speaking about, right? Like I remember in the early days, you blew people's minds because you remembered everybody's name. Absolutely everybody that came into the shop that had come in there more than once or twice, right?
Yeah.
You knew everyone's name, which is, how did you do that, by the way?
I've got a terrible memory. But
how did you do that? With a terrible memory?
I always tell when someone says, geez, you do well to remember my name. I haven't been here for ages. I say, well, you're the one that made me remember it by coming in a lot. Like you don't just come in once and then I remember it. I'll forget it straight up.
Yeah.
But if you come in every day for 2 weeks, I'm going to remember your name. And then the second device that I use to remember people's names is to not be afraid to get people's names wrong.
Good one.
Because then when you get it wrong and they say, oh no, it's blah, 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 or sometimes they don't say anything and you figure out a different way, it kind of like short circuits your brain to remember that name because you don't want to get it wrong again, or you've got 2 names to remember because you're like, it's not Peter, it's actually John. And then you've got 2 names to remember.
But somehow in that situation, the 2 names are easier to remember than the one because there's a story attached to it, right?
Exactly. It has meaning. Or just use it every time. Just try. Like, go for it every single time you see someone, instead of like relying on the fact that you know their name if you need to use it. Just say it all the time.
I love that.
You've got 2 opportunities to say, hi, Caleb. Bye, Caleb. How you going, Caleb?
Caleb.
It gets a bit weird if you use someone's name more than twice in the conversation. but for us, it's there you go, Caleb.
Yeah.
And we have that opportunity to ask people's name because we're putting it on the system. So my favorite thing was whenever I had a new staff member, because they would completely unapologetically ask for everyone's name. And I'm like, great. I was wondering what his name was.
I thought you were always standing there going, I know what it is.
But after a while I would.
You're like,
yeah, totally.
That's so good. That's actually a massive, it has a huge impact on someone's experience. And I think that's what you leant in hard to in that interaction and we're going down a massive rabbit hole now, but it's a really good one. When someone walks into a place, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, when someone's interacting with someone on a daily basis for something like coffee, for example, or even a barber, something they get often, a service that they get often, they want more than the bare service.
Yeah.
Right? So what I saw you guys doing was you weren't having a faceless exchange of coffee for money. It was coffee and a personal connection. Coffee and a human interaction was what, your product and your service was, right?
Yeah.
Is that what were you intentional about that?
It still is.
Yeah.
And we knew that, and that's not fake. It's not a part of a formula. It's just a really beneficial side effect of being nice to people. And it's so bizarre. Like, some people just ask what the secret to running a good hospitality business is. And it's just like, be nice to people. Wow.
Yeah, it's so simple, but people really do miss that.
Yeah.
Hospitality is one of those things, like, it's in the word, right? Be hospitable.
And it's really bizarre and massive confession, which you already know. But I'm no good at talking to people. It's so bizarre that we've used that as a platform for so much of our business over the last decade. But it doesn't come wildly naturally to me. I'm actually quite introverted.
Yeah.
What we did if you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to start conversations with every one of my customers from now on and it's going to be great. Like, yeah, that is great. But we more so listened, because if you give someone a safe environment where they see your smiling face every day, and eventually you ask their name, and then eventually you ask where they work, or they tell you, because there's going to be plenty of people that will just talk to you. But once people feel safe to talk to you, then you just have to be a set of ears, and then they'll walk away thinking that you were so lovely and all you did was listen.
Yes.
Especially in the morning, people are vulnerable. It's like, oh, how you going? Oh, bloody tired. Oh, I had shit night with the kids last night. It was no good. I'm like, oh, how old are the kids? And like, blah, 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 blah. Like, it becomes a conversation that they started, and all you have to do is listen, because it'd be quite an arduous task starting a conversation with 300 people a day. It's just
that's a genius move, and it's one thing that is applicable across all business. If people just want to deal with people that they enjoy and they have a good interaction with, and that they can see are being genuine, they're being themselves.
Exactly.
I have this thing about the business mask that people put on, like the professional selves that they step into. It's like a suit of armor that they're like, they're not even in there. You just like, sometimes I feel like knocking on their head going, is anybody in there? Yeah. Who are you right now? Yeah. Like, you're just being like a robot. People don't want that. They want to interact with someone who's been themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what I love about you, is you're always yourself. Whether you're, being asking a random question, right, or like making a comment about something someone said, I would say you're really good at conversation because you don't follow the templated formulas that most people just operate with. Like, g'day, how you going? Sure. Yeah, good, thanks, great. See you later.
Yeah. I hate asking people what they do for work. Like, that is, I don't know why that's people's first question.
What's generally your first question if you had to ask one?
What do you do when you're not at work?
Nice. And that's what it's about, right? It's getting past the superficial and getting to the personal.
Yeah.
And hospitality, I see it, and I've only ever experienced it from a consumer perspective, right?
Yeah.
But I've got all these beliefs about hospitality from receiving good and bad hospitality.
Well, that's it. And whether you know it or not, everyone knows what good hospitality is. Mm-hmm. Because you feel it.
Yeah.
It's an experience. It's not data.
No.
So it doesn't matter where you go. You'll know whether you received good hospitality when you walk out.
Yeah. And I mean, what is hospitality at its core? It's being hospitable. It's welcoming someone into a space that you control. It's like your home, right? That I should have looked up like a word definition on what does hospitality mean. But what's the definition of hospitality according to Jesse Gollan?
Well, to be quite straight to the definition, I guess, just being hospitable.
Yep.
Just looking after people.
Looking after people.
Yeah. You're not in retail.
Yeah. Yep.
Even though someone's walking in to buy something off you, you're not strictly in retail. Like, there are things that you can do in retail to be hospitable, which sets you above the rest. But for us, it's kind of a core of the offering to be hospitable to people and make them feel welcome.
Well, it's a deeper experience, I think, than most retail settings, in that the act of eating or drinking, it's like something required for sustaining life, right?
Yeah.
And then, that's, some things are questionable. Do you need that to live or not? But the act of that is a lot more personal than just buying something random.
Like, if they're not feeding their bodies, they're feeding their soul.
Yeah, that's good.
And if they can't get that, then they're probably not going to come back, because you can feed your body by cooking some broccoli at home.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Especially these days, like, you've got to. You can't just have an offering of not a product. That's the word I was thinking.
Yep.
You can't just have a product, because people are choosing whether they need that product. Like, I'm never going to be one to talk about economic pressures, but when people say, people are going to not come out as much anymore because they don't have as much money, it's like, well, they're still going to come out, because people want to do that, but they're just going to choose where they want to go. So if you're quiet and I'm busy, but we're offering the same thing, then maybe you should look at what you're offering outside of your product.
Good one. And that's like the how you're offering it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's the everything else.
Yep.
Man, we are wildly tangenting.
I know. Or like, I'm almost about to bring us back. Like, that was a long deep rabbit hole, but it was great.
I feel like we need to like write down some points as to where we tangented off so that we can
yeah, there's like 100 different options, but I remember we were going.
I didn't even get to tell you why we called nude food because your initial question was do you want to go right back to the start?
Can we just restart? No, I want to finish off. Hold that thought because I do want to know the answer to that.
Yeah,
I'm going to finish off the thought that we jumped off. So all the way back.
Yeah.
So you experienced adding another store. Next door was View Street.
Oh, yep.
And you remember where we were?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like trying to clone yourself and sort of finding out the challenges of stepping into being more of a manager rather than just an operator.
Yeah.
What did you do after that? Because you didn't just stop at one more, did you?
No, not at all. So we were still powering ahead and weren't really assessing anything just yet. Whilst View Street was actually worked out really well. And it started off really slow. Once the staff up there were nice and patient, and I'm like, just sit on your phone. I don't care. Scroll social media, watch some videos, serve a customer if they come up, but it'll get busy eventually. And so, poor Leanne Clark, who was the first guinea pig up there,
Yes.
and she was wildly patient, and it was just about generating the awareness that we were up there as well.
Yeah.
And then pretty soon after that, we springboarded straight into a shop in East Bendigo in the front of a CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
So we just set that up. I'm like, yeah, why not? Cool, let's go for it. Just ignoring the fact that there were going to be overheads and all sorts of things, and then the quiet period and having to rely on staff, and then we got an offer to set up a cafe in the tram that was in the piazza at Rosie Park, and we're like, sure, why not? And that wasn't just for a weekend; that was a semi-permanent, like 12 months. 6 months? It was 6 months.
It was a long time.
It was a long time.
Yeah, it was.
And that had its crazy quiet times, but also some crazy successful times. And we were just kind of investing in our brand, trying to really, it's like one thing to have a sign up around town, but we're like, let's go one step more and just have a shop everywhere. And then we had an opportunity come up at the Fountain, and we're like, why not? So smashed up another shop in there. And so by that time we had 4 shops on the one street, but strangely enough, they had different target markets because we had the early morning tradies on the high street coming through to go to the Fountain shop. And then we had the tourists at View Street. And then we had our usual core clientele at Mitchell Street, and then all the tourists from the gallery at the tram. So it was kind of 4 separate things. And they all had their time to shine. Like View Street was mental for Easter. Like we would have, it was insane. I'd miss it actually because it was so fun. We would have 5 staff on in this tiny little shop, and every single staff member had a different job, and we would just smash out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of coffees and hot chocolates. And Easter was so fun up there.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Are you forgetting White Hills? When did that come in?
Yeah, I am forgetting White Hills.
That was pre-tram, right?
That was pre-tram. Yeah, I was counting on my fingers up to 5, and
you
I'm
ran
like,
out of fingers.
There's 6. Why? So I forgot because I was trying to tell the story of all the ones that we don't have anymore. But we've still got White Hills. So
yes,
an opportunity came up.
As it
so this one
undoubtedly does with you.
That's the story of my life. An opportunity comes up and we jump on it. So I was driving past this shop in White Hills, and it said shop for rent just written on the window. This absolutely derelict, awful house.
I'm glad you said that because I was going to mention it wasn't a nice place.
It was terrible. It was awful. And as we were setting up, the landlord said, "Oh, the guy at the back just passed away. Do you want the back as well? I'm like, is he still out there?
Oh no.
Like, this paints a bit of a picture of like what the place was like.
Oh,
and in my head, I'm ticking along going, we could take over this whole house and kind of open doors and stages and have rooms, and then do the backyard. And we parked a food truck in the side yard once a week, and that was really cool. And it was like got to that point where we had 100 coffees a day, and we mainly set that shop up for my best mate, one of my best mates. Don't want to offend anyone. Dave.
Yes.
So Dave was doing the daily grind in graphic design, going to Melbourne every day, commuting, and he identified that was grinding him down a little bit because he was trying to focus on his family and wanted some time to do some freelance graphic design. And so we're like, how about we just set up a shop for you? So when we drove past that one, we're like, hey, let's do that. You can have a shop. So literally set that shop up so that he could quit his job and stop commuting to Melbourne.
That's amazing. And when you say it had been grinding him down, it was like a decade, right?
Yeah.
That he was doing it, right?
Absolutely. He did really well for himself, but he needed a shift.
And he was good at grinding, so
yeah,
he became a barista.
And he said, this goes back to our philosophy. He's like, I don't know how to make coffee. And I'm like, but you know how to be nice to people. Yeah. And that's the core of your personality. And that is all you need. I'll teach you. Man. We'll teach you. Like, we've never hired anyone who knows what they're doing. It's always, are you a nice person at the core? Yeah. Well, I'll teach you everything else.
That is so good. And I'm glad you brought that up because here's another great rabbit hole. How do you get your staff? Because I mean, the co-founder of Hebron Films, you put a seed in his mind, I reckon, would have been maybe 2014 or 15. We were always getting coffee, and I remember him saying, Jesse asked me if I wanted to make coffee.
Poached him.
And I reckon that seed grew and grew and grew until he was like, yeah. And so he worked a bunch for you, and
absolutely.
My wife worked at Get Naked.
Yeah.
And man, so my question is, you've often had really great staff, and you've already answered the question before I've asked it, but let's unpack this a little bit. What's your philosophy on hiring staff, and how do you do that?
Gravitate. You just kind of put out a beacon and hope that they come to you.
Tell me more about that. How does that work?
Because advertising for staff is just so arduous, and you then get all these people that come in, and then you've got to filter out whether they're there just for a job or whether they want to be a part of it. But if you just generate a good environment and attract good people, and then when you are looking for people, you just hope that you don't need someone next week. You're like, I'm going to need someone soon. So I'm going to start like slipping into every single conversation that, we might need someone in here sometime soon. And then those little seeds get in people's heads. And then it starts off small. Someone's like, well, I'll help you out. I can do one day a week maybe. And it's like, yeah, cool. That'd be fun. And then it grows and grows and grows. But it's always been the way. Like, we've only had to advertise very rarely between the businesses. It's just because everyone talks about hospitality.
Yeah.
And hospitality people talk to each other. And via a few degrees of separation, someone ends up talking to someone that says that they're looking. And then people kind of they usually reach out to us. Like, we don't usually have to reach out to anyone in particular.
I love that.
Someone says that they might be looking, and we're like, yeah, cool, let's get you in.
I love that. There's how many people that you've hired would you say were baristas before you hired them?
None at the coffee shop.
None.
Yeah.
That's pretty mental, right?
0.
And I love that approach though, because it's led to some having some really great people and continuing the culture that the business is built on, right?
Yeah.
It's that being nice to people, as you said. It's providing a really personable, real interaction. You built that culture based off who you are, but then, you know, I know a fair few of the people that you hired were, you know, people that were regular customers, for example.
They were already in the community.
Yes, they were all in the community. They were all already thought the same.
Yeah, exactly.
And had the culture.
They were already our people. It's you can tell if someone's your people or not.
Yeah.
After talking to them once or twice, or maybe for 10 seconds, it's like, yeah, you're cool. Unless they're hiding any deep, dark secrets. But usually, as long as someone's authentic and chill and can handle the pressure.
Yeah. And so if you've got those elements, you just taught them everything else.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a bit different up at Nude Food because we started that off and it needed lots of people really quickly. But still slightly within the network. Another one of my good long-term friends that we worked together back at Tuff Cafe, he reached out pretty soon after he knew that we'd taken that over and was really keen to jump on board, and he's one of our best staff now.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, so we're back to Nude Food, right?
Yeah.
You said you had a good reason for Get Naked Espresso being naked portafilters.
Yes.
What's your good reason for Nude Food?
Well, we wanted to springboard off our existing exposure and our existing reputation and tell people that we're doing that and more. And so we're like, it'd be good to have a name that kind of goes in with that vibe. But it was just sounding really forced. Like we were thinking of like just any synonym that goes with get naked, like nude, bare, all that kind of stuff. Like didn't actually think nude for a little while. It was we were just brainstorming, and then I got an email from school, and it was just mentioning about the nude food movement. So we didn't even invent the term nude food. That came from schools because they were all going for a push to stop sending rappers to school. So I've completely ripped this off from someone else.
Great.
And then as soon as I said, nude food, that's fun. And then it just rolled off my tongue, Nude Food Breakfast Bar. And I'm like, it's almost like looks exactly the same as Get Naked Espresso Bar.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that's great. And it just outlined immediately our philosophy of just being same thing, unashamed, authentic. And with the nude food movement at the schools, that was about having minimal packaging and things like that. And I'm like, that's exactly how we want. Like, that's how we want to roll. We're going to be able to say that that's because we try and make as much as we can from scratch. Like, as soon as we took over the cafe, we're like, why is that prepackaged? Let's just make it from scratch.
Wow.
And so we got rid of so much packaging and so much pre-purchased stuff. And it's just like, like it just works so well with the term nude food.
Yes.
So it's always good when you can get multi-layer meanings, and it also tied in with our other venue. So
yeah.
And then it took half a second because espresso bar is arduous and breakfast bar is arduous. It's just there to kind of like balance out the sign.
Yes.
And so it just became nude food, like, and it just worked so well.
It does.
It latched very quickly.
Wow.
And now people just say nude. Go on a nude. Heaven forbid if we put Get Nude Food Espresso Bar. I mean, breakfast bar. See, it just doesn't work. There's too much. There's too much.
Too much. Totally.
But it just works so well with our philosophy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. So we're at the height of the Get Naked Espresso Bar empire.
Yeah.
What happened next?
We were just about to take over Persia.
Yeah. Great.
No, so they were actually all doing really well. It was all looking really good, but I could just feel myself getting more and more tired.
No, really?
And-
Being split between
and-
6 or 7 venues, that made you tired.
And I was waiting for the bank account to get like exponentially larger because we had 6 of these things now. We should be like, I should have 6 times more income coming in.
Yeah.
But what it actually did was created 6 times more jobs for me to do, and it made me 6 times less able to be in the shop doing what we did to get it off the ground in the first place. And it made us 6 times more susceptible to staff not being well that day. Like, it doesn't happen every day, but if you've got 6 shops, your chances are much higher.
Yeah.
Or someone had run out of milk and I'd be running around to one shop, driving crates of milk out to the next shop, or just like it became spot fire central. And so I feel like that's when we really kind of grew up a little bit and learned. That was our first real learning moment.
Yeah.
Where we realized that more is not more.
More is not always more.
More is not always more. So we were starting to feel a little thin, like butter scraped over too much bread.
You know who's going to love that reference?
Dave.
I'm not even going to explain it. If you don't know what we're talking about, then
yeah,
just press pause on this and off you go.
So we had to make a decision, and we quickly shut the East Bendigo one, and I'm trying to get it in the right order because it all happened so quickly, and the tram finished up, and we had a couple of awesome staff at that time, like really awesome staff.
Really awesome.
They were so good, and they were so good that they really wanted to kind of step out on their own as well. And there was an opportunity for them to kind of take on an established shop each. So
wow.
They took on Peachy now and Pogo now, which was the Fountain and View Street. And I was just like so like wildly proud of them.
Yes.
They've that thin element that I had, they were able to bulk it out by being in there. And that's where the actual, like, not replica because they're doing their own thing now, but
yeah,
that's the closest thing I could get to cloning myself, actually like walking away.
Yeah.
And so now these businesses are thriving and they're doing an amazing job, whereas I never would have been able to keep that up.
Yeah. And I think that's a real testament to what you started is you attracted like-minded people and gave them what you could. And then they ran all on their own, right? And those 2 shops are great. Like, they're great.
Yeah.
How cool.
Yeah, exactly. So then we were able to just focus. So Dave, by that time we'd taken on a new lease at White Hills just up the road to get out of the ghost house.
Yeah, it's a much nicer spot. Yeah,
and we've been there for 5 years now. We just signed another term.
Great.
So it's sticking around.
Yes.
And that's great. It's becoming its own institution now. There are some people out there that don't even know that we have another shop in town. And they don't even know who I am. It's great. I walk in there and the people are like, who's this guy? And I love that.
That's pretty cool though, right?
I like being able to just kind of sneak in there and catch up with Dave in the morning. And but that's going well out there. And so now we've got the 2. And then that just gives us time to focus on other things like nude food, because that's going absolutely gangbusters. It's great.
It is. Yeah, that's wild. I love, and obviously, being breakfast bar, it doesn't just do breakfast, does it?
No.
Man, it's got a rockin' lunch menu. That I've been meaning to say the new-ish menu. It was probably a couple of months ago now.
Yeah.
Those. I think how long's the spaghetti going to be on the menu?
The spaghetti, the prawns.
Yeah.
until the next menu.
Okay, well, I'm just going to say it now. I'm sorry if you go to Nude Food and it's not there, but chili prawn spaghetti.
It's wild because it's the most simple dish that we have on the menu.
I love it so much.
And we
That's
made
my favourite.
we made a really active decision to shake any of the existing influence that we had from the original menu because it was quite heavily Asian influenced, but a lot of customers really loved a lot of the stuff on there, and we'd evolved them to a point where they were our own, but they still had that vibe about it.
Yeah.
And so the last menu, we worked with our head chef Shannon, and said like, let's just make it our own. So we really like any opportunity that we had to amp something, we amped it up. It was good.
All right. I want to dive into one big subject here, and I feel like I could speak to you for like 2 days. So we're going to have to really pick and choose here.
Yeah.
But for anyone who's been listening to this, it will not have gone over their head that your appetite for risk must be huge.
Yeah.
like,
or I'm just really stupid.
How, looking back on, taking so many opportunities, one, would you do that similar thing again? And what did you learn from the process of being yes man to the opportunities that excited you?
Yeah. I think that yes man is actually at the heart of it, and it goes into my personal life. I struggle to say no to a lot of things, but obviously I'm not just going to say yes for no reason. It's got to be calculated, but it's not just the hospitality, it's not just the cafe and the coffee shop that we've taken on as a risk. We set up Handlebar with a collaboration. That was a big risk back when I was really young in the business and quite fresh in the business game. And then 3 other guys that I'd met, already knew or met through the coffee shop. We looked out the back and we're like, this could be cool. And we're like, and my little brain says, oh, that's an opportunity. That'd be cool.
It was cool though, because the block, no one would have known it's there unless you had a drone, and I don't think drones existed back then.
No.
It's a big hole in the center of the block.
Yeah,
There was just a big blank space in the middle.
And it's just so peaceful, and our brains were just ticking along, just thinking, yeah, this could be really cool. And just kind of just the dead space, as you said, just giving it some life. And so once I relied on the other guys to set up a bit of a prospectus and get about 30 shareholders on board to fund it.
Wow.
Because that was the key. It's like, yeah, that's cool, but I don't know, I've maybe got $100 in my pocket and I'm willing. That was always my my contribution to things. Like, I'm willing to work at it.
Yeah.
And I don't think I understood the value of that back then, because a lot of people don't have the time or understand or have the drive to do those things. So we worked really well as a team to get that established, and that's coming up 9 years now out the back there.
And it's its own institution in Bendigo now.
Yeah.
Handlebar, for anyone who's outside of Bendigo, is awesome little bar that is positioned right in the middle, completely surrounded by buildings in the middle of a block in the CBD. And you actually accessed it through Get Naked for most of its life.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
That was a big job, packing up the shop at the end of every day to be completely as secure as possible.
Yeah.
So anything that wasn't screwed to the walls eventually went missing.
Oh, no.
So we were locking cupboards, putting covers over machines, stacking stools, all sorts of stuff. And we did that for years.
Yeah.
Until I suggested that we've probably got to the point now where we can take over the lease next door.
Yeah.
Because we'd already leased their backyard, and I was sweet talking them with that seed mentality. Over a long period of time. If you ever want to move out, let me know. And so we took that on and we boarded up an office out the front and left a nice hallway for us to go around the back. And that was great for the coffee shop. It meant that we could really focus on just having it set up in a way that we wanted to. So I was able to reconfigure the actual bar and where the machine is and where the staff serve from, now that it wasn't susceptible of an evening to intoxicated patrons. So, but yeah, that worked out really well. And it got to a point recently over the last few years where I was quite busy doing a lot of other things, and the other directors were also quite busy because we were all quite driven. So naturally we kept finding more and more things to do. And they've recently stepped aside as directors, and I've just this year taken it on as my own project. So I've still got the shareholders behind, so I still have a responsibility to them.
Yeah.
But I'm really injecting myself back in there now as well, to kind of give it that vibe that it used to have a little bit more. It was a bit more vibrant. And it's kind of gone a little bit sleepy over the last couple of years. I injected myself in there really strongly to get it out of lockdowns.
Yep.
And that was some of its best trading times, because I've always kind of managed it from afar as a director.
Yeah.
And so when I was running it myself, I'm like, well, by now everyone knows our philosophy.
Yeah.
And by injecting that into the bar, it became wildly successful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm just going to do table service. I'm going to treat it like a restaurant, because that's how I operate.
Yeah.
And that turned out to be a really unique little offering. So that was fun.
I love that. We're going to wrap this episode up with one of my favorite subjects and questions to ask. For any hospitality owner or someone who's even working in a venue and is thinking about going out on their own and starting their own thing, what are Jesse's keys to success? One thing I want to bring up while you're thinking, my view of what it looks like for Jesse to concentrate on something is long slats of timber over his shoulder. It points to something you said earlier about really a lot of people don't have the energy and the drive to push something forward and to really create something. And that's what I see you doing in nearly every venue that you have, is you are creating. You are, and quite often, building something. If it's at Handlebar or if it's at Mitchell Street store.
Yeah.
Does that play into the keys to success? And do you have any others?
I don't think it's hugely necessary, but it definitely helps drive things from the background. But I think that we could sit on the things that we're doing now without trying to build more things, like physically or figuratively as well. But I think our keys are just in empowering your staff to make sure that they are doing what you would be doing if you were there, but you're not there. Or you can choose to be there, because my wife Hayley, she's at Nude Food all the time. She runs it. Like, I barely do anything now. I'm very, very backseat so that I can be slinging bits of wood over my shoulder and kind of focusing on the next project. Like, we just bought a new building in Quarry Hill at the old Mount Edgecombe Hotel.
Ooh,
and so
boy.
So we're going to be moving our entire staff from Nude Food into that at the start of next year.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm going to be doing exactly what you just said, carrying large pieces of timber over my shoulders. And because we have that, we've empowered our staff and our team to operate so efficiently and effectively when we're not there. It allows us to grow.
Yeah.
And do those things. So we're super excited about that. And it's going to be a massive project.
So you are, Nude Food's not going to be at 111 Mitchell?
We're going to try and sell it.
Okay.
We're going to try and sell the brand.
Right.
Yeah. And we're going to really encompass all of our values in the new building.
Yep.
And so it's going to physically represent our vibe.
Wow.
Whereas we didn't get the opportunity to set that other place up. We inherited everything as it is there.
Yep.
So that'll be really exciting for us to really express ourselves there.
Wow. So new place in Quarry Hill, new brand.
New brand.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Look out.
Look out.
When is this happening?
Well, we're there. I'm in there now.
Oh my goodness.
Hence
the
Haley,
Fight Club looking knuckles.
Haley's like, wear gloves. I'm like, I can't find them. They're wet.
That's so good.
Yeah. But I think it's probably worth circling back and answering your question a little bit more specifically.
That I want to before we wrap up, I want to hear a little bit more about that. But the staff one, that's easy to say, but not necessarily easy to do in terms of empowering your staff to be all they can be. Because anyone who's managed staff before will know there's a difference between a staff member who just shows up and does what they're told and nothing else.
Yeah.
And then one who treats it like it's their business and like they are an integral part of the fabric that makes the culture and they drive it.
Yep.
And that's what I see all the staff at Nude Food do. They feel like part of the family.
Definitely.
Like they are an integral part and they know they're an integral part of the culture. It's like their house, like they're welcoming people. They're so hospitable. How have you empowered them to do that?
Well, that's something that I've done very closely with my wife, Haley.
Shout out to Haley. She is an absolute legend.
Absolute gun. She was apprehensive to inject herself into the business to begin with.
Really?
But once she did, she realized that she was awesome and found her wings.
Yes.
And eventually she just stopped rostering me on. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'll hang out with the kids, or I'll do some other jobs that we need to doing. And but to get those staff on board so heavily, it's just the culture. It's about making those staff feel valued and treating them like they are running your business for you, because they are making you money. And if you don't tell them every now and then, thank you very much for doing such a great job, you are such an important part of this business, we would really struggle without you, like all those things. And communication, that's a massive thing that is so easy to forget. Just communicate. Just say, hey, can we catch up for a quick meeting after service on Thursday? And just sit there and say, is there anything that you want to say? Just listen.
Wow.
Or like, how are you going? Just have the basic questions. Is there anything that we can do to help you grow in your position? Do you need support from us in any way? And just be nice to them as well.
That is some absolute gold advice for helping staff be all they can be, because it's so easy in a business to treat and to view your business as a machine that's just got a bunch of cogs in it, working away, and to take the personal element out of it. But what I'm hearing from you is that you treat those people like they're valuable, important, precious people.
Definitely.
And you give them space to grow, and you give them space to share what is going on with them, right? And to share it with you. And I would say that they know that, one, you care about that, but two, they have the ability to see change, or that you're going to do something with what they tell you. Would you say that that's part of that as well?
Yes, essentially. I'm trying not to just agree with you.
Well, I'm
trying to expand on it.
Yeah, you could, the risk in sitting down and have formulaic kind of meetings is that ask them something and then you're not prepared to do anything about it.
Yeah.
do you respond to
Definitely.
do employees say, hey, this is what I want, and then things change?
Yeah. Well, and 9 times out of 10, they want some dynamics to change, usually with another staff member, or someone needs some more validation, or someone needs some clarification, and it always comes down to communication. So it's not always up and down communication. It's facilitating lateral communication as well within your team, because if they don't have that bond as well, then things are going to come unstuck when the heat gets turned up. And I think that's one of those things where you can watch. You don't even need to know that the staff are happy. You go in there on one of those days when we're absolutely humming and it is so busy and it's ridiculous, just crazy. You think that must be so stressful, but everyone's running around, giving each other high fives, just doing a great job, talking, listening to good music, taking a moment to talk shit with each other for a bit, just like backing each other up, saying you're doing a good job.
Wow.
Communicating with the kitchen, because that's one of the really hard barriers to get. To eliminate that front of house versus kitchen.
Yep.
So it all just comes down to communication. And that's something that we've learned over the last couple of years. That wasn't necessarily, it was a given, but we didn't realize how much effort actually has to go into communication. Wow. Like it has to be forced. And when you think that, not forced, but you have to make it happen. It has to be intentional.
Yep.
And then when you think you've communicated enough, you just communicate more.
I love that. All right. New spot. I'm so excited for that. I have not heard. This is the first I'm hearing about this new. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you have a name yet?
No, we can't think of anything. We've got like a million spitball names, but okay. We think it's time to break away from the Get Naked Nude Food theme. And we're going to try and just really, we've learned so much about ourselves, and we've got an opportunity to put this into our own building, in our own establishment, and build it from scratch. Like we're absolutely gutting the place. It's just absolutely trashed. And so that the name will come when we figure out exactly what we're going to be offering, but it's going to be wildly wholesome, really lovely. It's going to be just us.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
Cafe, restaurant,
hotel. So cafe.
Yep.
But we don't want to call it breakfast anything, because we want to break out of just doing the mornings. We want to do, it's a great opportunity to do all-rounders, but we're not going to do evening service.
Yep.
We'll do early morning coffees, breakfast, push into lunch like a lot stronger than we can up at Nude Food. It winds up pretty quickly up there.
Sure.
And then we want to keep that, the beer taps, we want to set them up and be able to have afternoon beers on the weekend, open a bit later, enjoy some sunshine, set up a nice outdoor dining area with maybe like a smoker or a pizza oven, do functions or something like that. So
I like that idea.
It's got a massive potential to just be an all-rounder. Bottles of wine.
Oh yeah.
Providor.
The location.
Yep.
Let's just, I don't have it clear in my mind.
Yeah.
It's in Quarry Hill.
The
old Mount Edgecombe Hotel.
Just up from the Queen's Arms on Alinda Street.
On the corner?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Look out.
What a spot.
That's a great spot.
Isn't it?
When?
So building currently.
Yep.
And hoping to be finished by November, and then we'll facilitate some sort of a transition over the rest of the year, and hopefully good to go by the start of January.
Wow. I love that ambition. I love everything that we've talked about. Thank you so much for spending the time with me and diving into the past and into the future. That's really, really exciting. So if people want to, buy Nude Food, then how do they get in touch with you? Just rock up?
Whatever. Rock up. Send an email.
Yeah, great.
It's going to be on, we're going through a broker, so it's going to be available.
Yep, great. And if I guess if you want a great coffee, go to White Hills or Ebb Mitchell Street, Get Naked Espresso Bar.
Yeah.
And please, somebody go to Nude Food and get the chili prawns and say Caleb sent you. I think they all know my name there. So oh man, amazing.
Thanks for having me. It's a good chat. And I feel like we could definitely talk for hours.
Yeah, like I'm really cutting this thing off right here.
I'm mindful of the fact that I know for a fact that there are some dot points that you wanted to ask me that we've skimmed over.
Hey, episode 2, when you've opened unnamed Old Mount Edgecombe new place.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
It's not the first time we've had a chat, and it definitely won't be the last.
Thanks, Jesse.
Thanks, Caleb.
Well, that's it for this episode. If you really enjoyed listening, why don't you drop a comment in the comments below? Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel so that you get updates on when all of the next ones come out. That really helps grow this little community of people that are diving into regional business and celebrating and learning more from it. So really appreciate your support, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.